with all of the pieces like that I talked about earlier, the most important one for me is the customer discovery. And I feel like you can mess up the other ones. You can be off the mark with the other ones. But if the customer discovery piece, if you know who that person is, and it might be more than one, it might be more than one person. Most businesses have multiple customer.
And this is the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady, sponsored by Upstate Essential Solutions. If you need help with accounting and taxes or personal finances, contact me today at dakotagrady.com. Hey y'all, good morning. It's Dakota Grady here for the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast. Thank God for joining us. I have a guest today, Ms. Moniek James. She is a transformative content strategist. How do I know about that? But she's on LinkedIn. But no, I've been knowing Moniek for about 2 years now. So I wanted to actually have her on the show and talk about all things marketing. So without further ado, Moniek, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. I'm just here for whatever it is.
So tell everybody about who you are and what you do, Moniek.
Yes, so I, like you said, I'm a content marketing strategist. I focus on the elements of marketing strategy that I believe are the foundation for whatever form of marketing activity a business owner or brand owner or nonprofit leader does. If you use live events, if you use mailers, if you use paid advertisements, regardless of the format or the type of marketing you do, I believe having a foundation and actually knowing what to say in that marketing is important. And so that's why for me, my work focuses on that foundation, the strategy, nailing down or like just pinning down the brand message. And that includes beliefs and values, the perspective and the unique value proposition is what the marketing bros call it. The customer discovery, getting really clear on what the 360-degree lifestyle of that intended customer looks like. So you always have something that you could talk to them about. Customer journey mapping, recognizing that that intended customer is going through a process. Just because we are ready to sell the thing doesn't mean they will be ready to buy the thing. So being aware that they're going through a process and building out the marketing to serve them or to meet them throughout the journey. And then the last piece is really figuring out, what those topics are going to be, what your content is going to be, and then managing the content, especially in the online space. There's 1,000 different channels and media formats that we can leverage to publish our content. And it helps to have a system, something that is repeatable, something that, allows a person room to experiment with new things without disrupting the whole apple cart, and just be consistent in a way that, establishes thought leadership for the brand owner, builds credibility for the brand, and ultimately positions those sales conversations.
So it sounds like marketing is complex. It's not simple. That's fair to say.
Okay. I was going to say it's simple and complex, if that makes sense. Like I feel like it's simple because the goal for marketing is to make the type of connection that makes the person lean in. Because if they lean in, they're like, tell me more. And then that gives you the opportunity to shift into the sales conversation. So in that way, it's simple, but yes, like just recapping all of those steps that I just talked about, that's where the complexity comes in. But it's through that process that I believe brand owners can get to the clarity that they need so that they can show up and be confident in creating those conversations that invite people to lean in.
So what if someone is doing different things, different strategies, marketing, say email marketing, social media marketing, and even like locally, but they're not getting traction?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think maybe missing piece in your opinion?
I think with all of the pieces like that I talked about earlier, the most important one for me is the customer discovery. And I feel like you can mess up the other ones. You can be off the mark with the other ones. But if the customer discovery piece, if you know who that person is, and it might be more than one, it might be more than one person. Most businesses have multiple customer avatars. But if you know that person's life and how your offer fits into their life, then you can be doing networking, you could be writing emails, you could be doing social media, and you will be using the language that that person will recognize. So you can, like I said, you can be a little bit off with the other areas, but once you nail the customer, and the customer discovery is so important because if you've done the work to get to know them well, then you will notice when they shift, and then you can shift with them. Like if you're off the mark with your social media, meaning you're leveraging a channel that the bulk of your intended customers aren't on. If you're paying attention to the data and recognizing that, oh, well, at one point I used to get X percentage of engagement and now it's dropped. So if you notice that, then that's going to bring up questions. Well, what happened? If my messaging didn't change, then that means something in the customer's life has changed. What changed? Did we go through a global pandemic? Did some of them lose their jobs? Did they discover a new channel and they've left this one and now they're playing someplace else? All of those questions start to come up, and it can be prompted by just noticing a shift in how the customer behaves. And then that will, I believe, in a lot of cases, that becomes like the gateway to figuring out the other areas and how to refine those a little bit better.
So I had a client I interviewed recently about her business. She makes 6 figures, and she mentioned about getting in the community. Mm-hmm. What ways do you think people can get into the community to get involved, to get their brand awareness?
I think community, in the online space, we talk community all the time, right? Like that's the thing. Everybody's a community. But I think we have to consider, as the marketer, as the brand owner, we have to consider that for some of our intended customers, the online community happens after the in-person community has done what it needs to do. And I'm saying this as somebody who listen, if I can avoid going outside and dealing with people, I will. But we have to, our strategy has to include those types of tactics. We have to be eyeball to eyeball. We have to shake hands. We have to exchange energy with people, because what happens after that is now they're going to go to your online channels and click subscribe or sign up for your newsletter or whatever. I think for any business owner, it helps. It will always help to find those local organizations, associations, groups to plug into, to meet not just your intended customers, but your peers as well. Meet people with whom you can, reach across, and you can refer them and they can refer you. You can create partnerships and collaborations with, and also start to introduce yourself, you the person, before the business, to people who would be interested in buying what you have to sell.
What are your thoughts on doing a vendor event? Have you seen success for that? Maybe your business or your client's business being at a vendor event?
I've seen success with that. So my marketing strategy business is one of the 2 businesses that I own. In my other brand, now it's a confidence coaching brand, but it started out events. I hosted events, and from the success of those events that I hosted, I then created a line of apparel, affirmation-based apparel and jewelry that I sold at events. And so for me, vendor events have worked, not just me showing up at other people's events, but creating my own events where I could design the entire event program around, like, to be the universe that my product fit perfectly into. So I, sold affirmation-based jewelry, apparel for women. So I hosted events focused on women, lifestyle, self-care, empowerment, those kinds of things. And then also made a point to be a vendor or be an exhibitor at events related to those topics. So yeah, I definitely, I think the challenge is always figuring out what's the intersection between the event and your goal as the potential vendor. If there isn't an intersection, you're wasting your own time, you're setting yourself up for like a kind of frustration that can make us want to quit. So when we're clear, we can say yes to the right opportunities and no to the right opportunities as well, because we'll have done that work to figure out if the audience for that event is represented in our target customer base.
I went to an event last year, and most of the people who were at the event were out of town. So it was most people who flew in or drove in to attend the event, including me. And I mean, it was in Atlanta, Georgia. He had maybe at least one person I know who was from, actually two people. One was actually a speaker and one was a participant in the event. How important is that to have local people come, but have people not local come? Because in my opinion, I think it would be harder to get people who come out of town to your event or someone local, because they got to spend money for airfare, hotel, rent a car, food, gas, all those things to attend your event. Is that fair to say?
I think it depends on the business owner. Like I could, and I'm speaking from the perspective of an online business owner who builds locally, as opposed to a local focused business owner and the online presence might be secondary. Because I think those are two completely different situations and might require a different set of questions, and things will weigh differently based on what the business model is, like what that brand focus is. So for example, if I sold cupcakes and I don't sell my cupcakes through my website, then for me, it definitely would benefit to participate in an event where that has a local focus. But it could also benefit me to participate in an event that attracts people from out of town, because at least while those people are there, they're going to get an opportunity to buy one of my cupcakes. And even if I don't sell online, that could still create opportunities in other areas. So I think I'm one of those people. I usually shy away from, or I will reject like a one size fits all kind of thing. It's always going to be variables that will take like a very generic guidance and change it, because we all come to our business ownership journey with a different set of skills, but just a different set of experiences and goals and intentions. And those things always add some nuance to any circumstance. And I think those things have to be considered.
Last question for you before we close. Earlier you mentioned messaging. How important is messaging in your marketing? You may be marketing to people and maybe the wrong customer. How frustrating is that to you, for someone to be marketing for their business and then the messaging is not gravitating or having to attract the particular client?
That's incredibly frustrating. Like I mentioned earlier, it could make a business owner want to quit, because you think, well, I'm doing all of these things. I'm so busy. I'm constantly on this hamster wheel and nothing's working. It's at that point for me as a strategist that I always recommend taking it back down to the studs. Like, let's go back to the strategy and figure out what needs to shift. It could be the message itself, like what the brand is actually saying as it relates to their offer and how it solves a problem. It could be the customer, they're targeting or aiming their marketing messages at the wrong person. It could be they're on a channel, or they're delivering their marketing in a way that the intended customer just doesn't pay attention to. Like if my intended customer doesn't listen to podcasts, then why am I doing a podcast? You know, like but those are questions that, in my opinion, we have to take a pause to be able to answer. Sometimes we have to take our feet off the gas, put things in neutral. Actually, no, put the brakes, put the brakes on things, just to be able to give ourselves time to think through what needs to change. And that requires going through everything. And everything I just said is about the internal stuff, the internal strategy, but we also have to consider what's happening outside of the brand. At the time that we're recording this, it's the beginning of a new quarter, like Q2 just started. So for me, starting a new quarter is a perfect time to revisit a strategy, because things change every day. And at a minimum, I feel like brand owners should give themselves at least an hour at the beginning or at the end of a quarter to say, okay, what has worked, what didn't work, what do we need to change within the strategy? And then also, what in the external landscape, what in the world has shifted that would be impacting our intended customers in a way that would cause them to engage less, tune in and consume less, buy less, open emails less, because all of those things now get included in the new version of the strategy, so that going forward, you're not rinsing and repeating expired guidance or expired information. You're giving yourself the room to consider what's happening right now, so that your marketing can reflect what's happening right now in your audience's lives.
That's good stuff. So how can people find out about you online, social media, website? Moniek?
So my website is moniekjames.com. It's my first name, Moniek James.com. And I'm on many of the channels under my name, Moniek James, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And yeah, this is the kind of stuff I love to talk about, the strategy piece, the strategy conversations. At the time that we're recording this, I'm getting ready to teach a virtual workshop, literally about what we just talked about, the marketing strategy checkup, taking attendees through some things that they need to think about, some things that they need to address if at the time that we're doing this, they want to revisit their strategy, either because they want to improve on the results they're getting, whether it's good or bad. They just want to, make some changes. So I'm going to be guiding attendees through what to look at, how to go through your strategy and audit some of those very important elements, so that the marketing, I like to use this example when I'm teaching live. Like, let's say you go to a Halloween party, you get invited to a Halloween party, and you show up in your Christmas sweater at the Halloween party. Like, have you been paying attention? Like, that's what people are wondering. And sometimes in our marketing, we are applying guidance that is no longer relevant. And so we look like the person who's in our Christmas sweater at the Halloween party. That's why taking that time, taking that pause to revisit the strategy is so helpful, because it shifts us out of, oh, well, in 2015, this is what worked. Or even in 2022, this is what worked. And things have changed now in 2024 that we need to make sure we understand and that those changes are reflected in our strategy.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for your time, Moniek.
Thank you. This has been fun. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And this is the Coins, Cashflow, and Conversations podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. If you need help with accounting and taxes and personal finances, contact me today at dakotagrady.com.